The Gold Bug was written in 1843 by Edgar Allan Poe. Poe invented detective stories, and there's some debate as to whether or not this story counts as a mystery. I think it does, so I'm reviewing it.
Argofont Book Review, Argofont Book Review.
Our unnamed narrator goes to visit Mr. William Legrand, who lives in a swampy island area with his servant, Jupiter. Jupiter is a former slave, and he is the worst part of the story. He's a racist stereotype. There are multiple jokes about how dumb he is, and multiple uses of the N-word. It's hard to understand what he's saying, because he speaks in a heavy phonetic accent. The weird part is, it's a fake accent. Poe lived in this area. He knew how Southerners talked. Nobody talks the way Jupiter does. They don't say ghoul to mean gold. Back to the story. Legrand just found a golden bug. He draws a picture of it on some parchment. The narrator looks at the picture near the fire, and he's surprised at how much the bug looks like a human skull. It's kind of creepy. They get into an argument over whether or not there are antennae in the picture. Legrand takes the parchment back, and he turns pale when he sees it. Legrand acts oddly during the next month. He writes strange symbols and wanders the countryside at random. He claims the gold bug will make him rich. Jupiter suspects the gold bug gave him some kind of disease, while the narrator thinks he's insane. It's an Edgar Allan Poe story. A character who goes insane after seeing a skull is not out of place. Legrand forces the others to follow him to a tree in the remote woods. He forces Jupiter to climb up to a specific branch. He's disappointed to learn the branch is dead, and he's re-energized to learn there's a human skull nailed to the branch. Legrand has Jupiter drop the gold bug through the left eye of the skull. He notes exactly where it falls. He marks a line from the tree to the left eye and tells everybody to start digging 50 feet out. They dig for a long time and find nothing. It turns out they're digging in the wrong place because Jupiter is too stupid to know the difference between left and right. Legrand moves the marker to the correct spot, and this time when they dig, they find a fabulous pirate treasure. The final 40% of the story is a long explanation about what just happened. I think this works as a mystery story. Lots of mysteries end with the detective explaining how they figured out everything. This is not so different from that. If you're smart enough, you can figure out what happened based on all the clues. I doubt anyone ever did, but I think it's possible. Legrand was shocked when he saw the skull on the parchment. Why? He didn't draw it. He drew the bug with antennae on the other side of the paper. Where did the skull come from? He realized the parchment contained some sort of invisible ink which only appears when it's near a fire. After cleaning off the rest of the parchment, he found a coded message from the famous pirate Captain Kidd. The story goes into a lot of detail about where the parchment came from. It was a random piece of paper he found on the ground near the remains of a shipwreck. And Legrand is a smart enough detective to know it's an amazing coincidence he found a paper about pirate treasure and used it by a fire. By total accident. The pirate message was written in code. It's about 200 characters without spaces, with numbers and symbols instead of letters. Legrand explains how he solved the cipher in great detail. This is the most popular and most famous part of the story. It's where Edgar Allan Poe invented cryptogram puzzles. And it holds up today. All of his suggestions and tricks work when you're trying to solve cryptograms. He says single letter words are easy to find out because they're either I or A. Finding the word the is also easy because it's the most common word in English, and it contains E, which is the most common letter. And it's a letter which is often doubled. After guessing what symbols stand for T, H, and E, he looks for possible words. He quickly finds tree and through, which help him find 13, and degree. Good is easy to spot because we've got a G and a D and the same letter twice in between them. It's got to be good. In this way, he decoded the entire message, which says to use a spyglass in a specific direction from a specific spot. That way you can see the skull hidden in the tree. The treasure's 50 feet away from the tree, going in a straight line that crosses over the left eye of the skull. Legrand's strange wanderings around the countryside for the past month were him trying to find the right spot to use the spyglass. The note calls it Bishop's Hostel. The closest match he could find was a rock on a cliff called Bessop's Castle. Luckily, it was the right spot. Legrand admits he could have explained all of this before they went to dig up the treasure, but he found it more amusing to act like a madman the whole time, just to mess with everyone. The end. Poe's story follow-up. While Poe was alive, this was his most successful story. Everyone thought he was incredibly smart for figuring out how to solve a coded message. And yes, this is an impressive feat if you've never encountered coded messages before. Coded messages became far more popular and far more complicated after the story was written, to the point where cryptogram experts think it is a childishly simple puzzle. They have a point, a letter substitution code is pretty basic. Whenever I encounter a secret message in a mystery novel, it's usually a lot harder to solve. For some reason, there are two versions of the cryptogram in the story. One says 41 degrees, one says 21. I don't know who decided to replace the word 40 with 20, but they didn't bother to update the numbering in the part where Legrand says how many times the letters T and E appear. So now the solution is slightly off. I thought the story was okay for a coded message mystery. The creepy skull picture, Legrand's potential madness, and the buried pirate treasure definitely spice up the story. It could have been a lot worse. It could have been a long-winded lecture instead of a mystery, which is sort of what happened with Poe's murder of Marie Roget. People who don't care about coded messages seem to hate this story. I understand that. The story stops dead in its tracks for 5,000 words, so Legrand can explain about the message. You have to skip a lot of pages to get past that section. And they easily could have been eliminated had the pirates written in English. For all of its positive points, though, there is no getting around the fact that this story is racist. I can't recommend it because of that. Hopefully there's an updated version or an adaptation that removes the racist elements. That would make it better. But as it is, I give Edgar Allan Poe's The Gold Bug a thumbs down.